This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the St. Gabriel Valley today, and we are joined by Thomas Wong. He is the president of the St. Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District. So I'd like to speak with you about our drought. There's no question that when the governor imposed mandatory restrictions, Californians jumped, and we conserved water in a very significant way. Those restrictions have been lifted. Some districts are keeping them in place, others are not. But since the lifting, we are not saving water like we were.
No, definitely. We've eased our conservation efforts across the state when the state board kind of lifted the mandatory restrictions and went to more kind of self-reporting for water districts and water agencies. And so we've seen a little bit of fallback. It has started raining a little bit in the fall, but we don't know. And if the last couple of years have been any kind of indication, the start of a season being wet doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the season's wet, so we have to kind of keep up our conservation.
And what was so disappointing about this past season is that we really had anticipated that Southern California was going to get soaked by an El Nino. And instead what we saw was Northern California get soaked. Now, there are pluses to that, though. I mean, a lot of that rain was snow that went into the snowpack, into the Sierras, which feeds our thirst. So was it as bad as the headlines?
It's been bad, and even the last year was still drier than the year before in Southern California. Northern California, just an average winter kind of rain season, not above average, so an average year doesn't make up for 4 years of below average. And even if when the snowpack kind of came in with hotter temperatures, that snowpack kind of melted and didn't produce the same amount of water that we would have gotten, and we didn't capture as much of it.
So speaking of capture, I want to speak about not the most recent election, but the 2014 election, because in that election we did pass a bond, $7.545 billion. And, it's now 2 years plus. I've heard rumblings that maybe sites they're going to start working, but are we constructing more above ground storage, groundwater storage?
Well, it's my understanding that the State Water Commission is finalizing in terms of they're in charge of doling out the money for water storage projects, and they're finalizing, if not pretty much finalizing, the regulations and kind of the framework for how to dole out that money. I think $2 billion plus of money to projects. But I think what's more exciting about that is not only above ground storage, but also below ground storage. How do we activate and utilize our underground storage, our water basins throughout the state, as well as opportunities to store water when it does rain?
I do want to talk about the most recent election, the presidential election. As you may remember, back in May, President-elect Donald Trump went to the Central Valley and he told farmers that there was no drought, that it was a failure to preserve and use water wisely. He spoke, this is reporting, kind of derisively about environmentalists, about the Delta smelt, and he said that he would work to roll back environmental laws. What do you make of those statements and how that may impact California?
Really worried about that. With the election, we don't know, honestly. We don't know what is actually going to happen and when he's sworn in and becomes president. Some of these environmental regulations, I think, are in place for a good reason. I think there are opportunities to be a little more flexible on some of these things, especially in terms of getting water to where it's needed, and some relaxation of some efforts that may be responsible. But a wholesale kind of taking away and kind of throwing away the environmental protections we've put in place for decades is kind of a little alarming.
For argument's sake, let's presume that we do see a significant relaxation of environmental laws on the federal level. We still are a state that's part of this union, and so could California act in such a way that is more protective of the environment if the federal government is acting differently, or water policies more specifically?
Yeah, I think we can. And then also in terms of the federal government and its environmental protections, a lot of these regulations, you can't just wholesale kind of just take them away overnight. There are processes, I think, in the federal government for how to put in regulations, how to take them away. But it's concerning still when you have people in charge that are saying things that have long been held as kind of foundational in terms of things that we do in terms of protecting the environment, protecting species, and protecting the ecosystem, and just kind of throwing that out for the sake of having a little bit more water, and ignoring the reality that, yeah, it has been the 5 driest year period in our state's history, and this drought is real. To kind of dismiss science and those facts is disturbing.
I want to talk about more efforts that we as Californians can take, separate and apart from what may or may not happen on the federal level. In the midst of, I guess, year 4, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California had a very, very active artificial turf rebate program. It was so active that the money was snapped up very, very quickly. I think San Gabriel Valley may have had a matching program, is that right?
We actually did not have a turf program, but we took advantage, and our cities took advantage of the state program that actually doled out money to places that didn't have an existing turf rebate program.
So, but let me ask you more generally, though, about that question, because what we do know is that while the artificial turf rebate program was, I'll just use the cliche, sexy, because we saw this kind of artificial grass, and it became kind of very hip to have it. As I understand it, it may not have been the most economically efficient. And you may want to look more towards toilets and washing machines, and I guess that's what you were doing.
Which is what our district did and continues to do. We're pumping additional funding. We actually are restarting. We used to have a toilet giveaway. Now we're turning that into a toilet rebate program for our cities. We're continuing with rebate programs for high-efficiency washing machines, for clothes, and other kind of appliances that are going to help people save water and save money on their appliances indoors and outdoors on some things. But yeah, you're right. Turf rebate, the city controller in LA came out with a study, I think earlier this year, that looked at dollar for water saved. Turf rebates are probably the least efficient way to do that and to encourage that. But you'll see also Metropolitan Water District and others justify their program by saying, and rightfully so, I think, got a lot of attention and a lot of public kind of engagement on this in terms of conserving water.
Right, and let me be specific. That study indicated that it costs $1,400 in turf rebates to save 1 acre-foot a year. It costs $160 in appliance rebates to save 1 acre-foot a year. So clearly we see more benefit with these appliance programs. Do you have a sense, sir, if those programs are proliferating with some of your sister districts throughout San Gabriel Valley, LA, California?
Yeah, no, I think that most water districts, if not all of them, have some sort of rebate program and are trying to find ways to make them more robust and expand them to other kind of appliances. And water districts across the board, from what I can see, are engaging businesses and industry to be more water efficient with their technologies. And we'll see, as the building standards for the state continue to progress, more efficient designs and the technologies integrated into buildings and facilities.
What about irrigation? Another area you're looking at?
Yeah, no, and those are included. The state, the model water efficient landscaping ordinance is being implemented now across the state in cities. And so we'll start to see a lot. New properties are going to be a lot more, especially new construction, is going to be a lot more water efficient going forward. And as we replace older stock in terms of housing and facilities, we'll start to see more water efficiency.
Okay, his name is Thomas Wong. He is the president of the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District. My name is Brad Pomerance in the San Gabriel Valley. It's Charter Local Edition.